2019 public meeting of the Virginia Beach Planning Commission. My name is Dee Oliver, and I serve as the chairman of the commission. And before we get started, I have asked Commissioner Redmond to lead us in prayer, and that will be followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Horsley.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you today thanking you for your guidance and wisdom. As we begin this hearing today, guide our hearts and our minds in the spirit of fairness, right thought, and speech. Help us to remember our responsibility to serve our community with great insight, guided by understanding, wisdom, and respect for all. As we make decisions today, help us to promote the common good as we work together for the betterment of our great city. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, commissioners. I have asked Commissioner Wall to introduce our members.
Okay, thank you. To my right at the end is Kay Wilson. She is the city attorney. To my right is George Alcaraz. He is the East Coast Surfing Championship general manager, and he represents the Beach District. I am Jack Wall. I'm a civil engineer, and I represent Rose Hall District. To my left is David Weiner, and he's absent today, but he's in commercial sales, and he represents the Kempsville District. On the other side of him is Ron Ripley, and he's is Don Horsley, and he's a farmer. He's an at-large member. And then next to him is Ron Ripley. He's in real estate management and development, and he's at large as well. Dee Oliver, she's a funeral director, and she's the chairperson. And she's at large. Jan Rosinsky is next to her, and she's in property management with Long and Foster. She represents Centerville District, and she is the vice chairman. Next to her is Mike Inman. He's a real estate attorney with development in community law, and he's at large. Next to him is Dave Redmond in commercial real estate, and he represents the Bayside District. Whitney Graham is not here today, but he is in land development, and he represents the Lynn Haven District. And next to him is Steve Barnes, and he's a farmer, and he represents the Princess Anne District. And on his left is Jolilda Saunders, and she's the interim planning director. So if you could introduce your staff, we'd appreciate it.
Well, it's my great pleasure to introduce our new director of planning, who will begin tomorrow. His name is Bobby Tahan. And also, it has been my great pleasure to serve alongside of Kevin Kemp as interim director of the planning department. In addition to Kevin, we have Carolyn Smith, who is our planning administrator. Bill Lanford, who is our planning evaluation coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, who is one of our city planners, and Whitney McNamara, another city planner. We also have next to Whitney, Tori Rice, who is Kay's assistant, and we have our clerk, Cole Fisher, and Nicole Negrito, and Carol Dozier, who I think has stepped out of the room at this point.
Right. Thank you. The first order of business is the explanation of the rules that we use to run our meetings, and our clerk will explain the rules to us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of the commission with respect and civility. The commission requests that if you have a cell phone, please either silence it or turn it off. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there are any requests to withdraw or defer an item on the agenda. Consideration of these requests will be made first. The consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that the Planning Commission believe are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. Please note that any actions taken by the Planning Commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision to approve or disapprove an application will be made by the City Council. The commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you. The next order of business is to address those items to be deferred or withdrawn. If anyone here has an item to withdraw or to be deferred, please come forward.
Good afternoon, Randy Royal, Kimley Horn Associates, representing the Virginia Beach Development Authority on item D3. And we need a request of deferral for addressing some legal document issues for another 30 days.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there any opposition to this being deferred today? Thank you. The chair is also aware of the other item being deferred, which is agenda item number D1.
That is correct, Chairman. The city would respectfully request a deferral of item D1, the food truck ordinance. It will come back to you at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. So do I have a motion on the floor to defer items D1 and D3?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to defer items D1 and D3.
Second.
Second? Great.
Vote is open.
By recorded vote of 9-0, items D1 and D3 have been deferred.
Great. The next order of business, we will address those that have been placed on the consent agenda, and the vice chair will handle this portion of the agenda today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, we have 6 items on the consent agenda. The first item is matter number 1, and that is from Norfolk, Virginia Beach Airport, Inc., is an application for a conditional use permit, bulk storage yard on a vacant parcel on Miller Store Road in the Bayside District. Do we have a representative for that application? And if you would come forward and state your name for the record?
Good afternoon, Nathan Lay, MSA. I represent the applicant. We've been through the conditions. We don't have any concerns with those. We agree with everything.
And the conditions are acceptable?
They are acceptable.
All right, thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Dave Redmond to read this into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Brzezinski. This is an application for a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard on a 6.35 acre land parcel in Airport Industrial Park. The parcel is zoned I-1 light industrial, and it would be on a gravel base within this land parcel. The site is, it includes Category 6 landscape greening, a solid fence, appropriate security with a gate and keypad entry. The staff believes it's an appropriate use of this property. There is no opposition, and so the Planning Commission concurs and places it on consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Redmond. The second item on the consent agenda is item number 2. Emmanuel Protestant Episcopal Church is an application for a modification of use conditions for a child care education center within a religious use on property located at 5181 Singleton Way in the Kempsville District. Is there a representative here for that matter? Okay. Are there any objections to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Jack Wall to read this into the record.
Thank you. In January 2000, Emmanuel Protestant Episcopal Church received a conditional use permit for church expansion for preschool. A condition of the approval limited the hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. In 2018, the church completed construction on a new activity room and now desires to expand the hours of operation for the preschool from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Therefore, the applicant is requesting to modify the condition to allow them to also have an extended day program. The half-day program will continue. It is anticipated the school will enroll a maximum of 20 students from their existing half-day program into the extended day program. The extended day staff will likely include 2 staff members as well as church building manager or a custodian. Staff recommends approval, and we've placed this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. The next item on the agenda is item number 3, B&W Tattooing LLC, which is an application for a conditional use permit for a tattoo parlor on property located at 172 South Plaza Trail, Suite F, in the Beach District. Is there a representative here for this application? When you come to the podium, can you state your name for the record?
Good afternoon, Wesley Boyd.
Okay, and are the conditions acceptable?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Mike Inman to read this into the record.
Thank you, Jan. This is a conditional use permit application for a tattoo parlor within an existing shopping center at the southeastern corner of South Plaza Trail and Daytona Drive. It is a 2,000 square foot facility which will employ up to 8 people with operating hours from noon to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Other than signage, there'll be no other changes to the exterior of the building. The proposed use is considered acceptable in the opinion of staff because it is compatible with other existing commercial businesses along this section of South Plaza Trail. Prior to obtaining or operating on the site, the applicant must obtain a business license, and the health department must verify the business meets all the requirements of the city code. For these reasons, we've decided to put it on the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Inman. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, North Landing Beach RV Resort and Cottages, Virginia Beach LLC, an application for a modification of conditions on property located at 161 Princess Anne Road in the Princess Anne District.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Excuse me. Madam Chair, members of the Commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing the applicant. Mr. Phil Moreau, whose companies own and operate the resort, is here with us this afternoon. We appreciate being on the consent agenda. All 14 conditions are acceptable to us. Mr. Moreau wanted me to let you all know that there's been no one from the campground that has trespassed on the adjacent property and tipped any cows, and none have been reported. Certainly not by any Boy Scouts. I also appreciate the work of Whitney McNamara on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone here opposed to this application being placed on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Steve Barnes to read this into the record.
Thank you, ma'am. This conditional use permit was originally proposed or accepted by the council in 1971, and over the years it's had numerous upgrades and renovations and have been completed and approved by the council. And this request for modification of the existing conditional use permit to allow 2 community piers is acceptable. The proposed piers on the north end of the beach was approved by the Wetlands Board in December 2018 as part of a plan to address a violation created by a previous owner and to remedy existing shoreline erosion. The pier on the southern end of the beach has not yet been considered by the Wetlands Board. In conversations with the applicant's agent, this pier will be reviewed by the Wetlands Board in a subsequent application for additional shoreline. Stabilization improvements, and the staff is comfortable with moving forward without wetlands approval as a condition, is recommended below that the approval be obtained prior to the issuance of the building permit. Since purchasing the campground in 2015, the applicant has significantly improved and renovated the campground to make it one of the top-rated campgrounds in the country. The proposed piers will add additional recreation amenities to attract visitors to the Virginia Beach and offer further opportunities for enjoyment of the city's unique natural resources. There's no opposition that we know of, so we've put it on the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Barnes. The next item on the consent agenda is item number 5, which is B&L Investment Group, LLC, which is an application of a conditional use permit, motor vehicle sales on property located at 202 South Newtown Road in the Kempsville District.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, Madam Chair, members of the commission. Again, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing B&L Investment Group, LLC, on this application. We again appreciate being on the consent agenda. All 16 conditions, including the lowering of the sign to 6 feet and the limitation, because it is a transitional or holding pattern use, are all acceptable to my client. Appreciate the efforts of both Mr. Lanfair and Robert Davis on this application.
Thank you. Is there anyone here in opposition of this application being placed on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Ron Ripley to read this into the record.
As was read, this is a conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales at this location, and it's a 31,516 square foot corner location on the corner of Newtown Road and Arrowhead Drive. It's an existing building that was built in 1979, and the applicant wishes to use it for this motor vehicle sales, displaying about 28 cars. There's some additional landscaping being provided. There's the usual conditions as the council accepted. Doesn't allow for any kind of cars that are disabled to be parked there, or lighting or noise, and those type of things have been mitigated by those conditions. There's limitations on the hours of operations. Staff believed it was appropriate to approve this. Planning Commission considered it, and we recommend it for consent.
Thank you, Commissioner Ripley. The next item on the consent agenda is item number D2, Pleasure House Brewing, LLC, an application for a conditional use permit, craft brewery, assembly use in open-air market on property located at 2032 Pleasure House Road in the Bayside District. Is there a representative here for this application? When you come to the podium, could you please state your name for the record?
My name is Charles Stevenson.
And are the conditions acceptable?
They are.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone here in opposition to this application being placed on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, the chair has asked for Commissioner Dave Redmond to read this into the record.
Thank you, Ms. Rosinski. This is an application for a conditional use permit for craft brewery assembly use on property on Pleasure House Road. This is it's an existing building of about 6,000 square feet, 6,786 square feet to be exact. And the applicant intends to use about 2/3 of it, or about 4,000 square feet, for the manufacturing and storage of the beer product, and then have 3 small tasting rooms that would in total be about 2,400 square feet. Additionally, they intend to have a 260 square foot patio for outdoor seating and enjoyment. This application has actually taken a number of elements that show great care. Obviously, they meet the parking requirement, the food truck element, which is to be along the side and rear of the property. They intend to install an electrical hookup so there's no noise from a generator. And in addition, they plan along the back to the adjacent neighborhood a noise-reducing fence to limit the impact on this community. This is a stretch of Pleasure House Road that could use some improvement, and this is a small but growing business, and we're fortunate to have that kind of activity and grateful for it. So it seems to be a very fitting use that will bring some life and some activity and some energy to this particular piece of Pleasure House Road. I'm well familiar with it. I travel it every day, nearly every day, and Mr. Ripley does too, I know. So there's lots to like about this application. The staff recommends approval, and the commission concurs by consent. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Redmond. Madam Chair, that was the last item on the consent agenda. I would like to move that consent agenda items number 1, 2, 3.
Hold on one second.
I'm sorry, after your motion, I want to make a clarification.
Okay, thank you. So, approve items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and D2 for approval.
Have a second for that?
Second.
And I just want to clarify that item D2, the request for the assembly use was actually removed. So the advertisement and the staff report correctly reflect the request is limited to the craft brewery and the open air market. So I think that there was on that sheet that you're working from up there, that it did not have that removed, so our.
And I saw that, I wondered about that, but I saw in the staff report, it's correct.
Yes, Ron?
I have two disclosures, all on item number 2. The first one is that I have a partial interest in a apartment community property across the street from the church. Just disclosing that. I have no financial interest in the church, obviously, and no interest in that at all. And the second is that they've listed Town Bank as their lender, and since Town Bank is listed as the lender on the application, I need to disclose that I'm a member of the Town Bank Board and Chesapeake Advisory Board, and I have no interest in this application, and the Planning Commission doesn't make the final decision. It simply is an advisory board, and I'm able to participate in the transaction fairly and objectively and in the public's interest.
Thank you. Yes.
I have the same
Mr. Redmond.
disclosure to make as Mr. Ripley concerning Town Bank. I'm on the Town Bank Virginia Beach Board, and likewise, I will vote on the matter, as I have no conflict of interest due to the fact that we do not make a final decision on this.
Okay. All right.
Vote is open.
Thank you.
By recorded vote of 9-0, items number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and D2 have been approved by consent.
Great. Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of the applicants who had a matter on the consent agenda today. Hearings and these items will be scheduled on the city council agenda. And if there is there any other further business that we have today? No. If none, on behalf of my fellow commissioners, I'd like to thank everyone for attending today and thank the planning director and her staff and his staff and his staff for their excellent work in preparing today's agenda. We are adjourned.
I think that's the record.
Madam Chair.